Hello friends, today I have compiled a video of all of my favorite cutting boards that I have created. They're for decorative purposes only. Of course, you will be able to tell when you see them. The first couple are new DIYs that you haven't seen before. But let me know throughout the video which of the DIYs you saw when they originally aired or if they're new to you. Let's get crafting. Remember friends, this is part of a compilation video. The DIYs are previous video content, so some websites and playlists are not valid anymore. I'm going to start out with some cutting boards, cheese boards, bread boards, whatever we're calling them these days, that I cut out on my scroll saw and sanded and got all prepared, and I'm selling these on my Whatnot channel now. So if you're interested, go on over there and check out my shows and you can purchase some. Now we're going to start out with this one. It's 7x12 and it's all finished out. And we're going to take the DIY Dark and Decrepit liquid patina, and it acts as a stain. It is beautiful. You can use it for multiple purposes, but this is what we're going to do with it today. And I'm just going to give it one really good coat all over. Take a baby wipe. Well, I started out doing this, and I didn't really like how it was working. It wasn't moving around really well. So I went ahead and just gave it a really good coat all over and used the baby wipe to wipe back the excess. And then on the other side, I did a really good thick coat and then wiped it back with a paper towel. And it gave it a more of the look that I was going for. I'm going to show you that just so you can see the difference in how that looks. And I'm only going to make this one-sided. I may go back at a later date and create on the other side of it, but for today's video we're only going to do one side. You know, I love my two-sided DIYs, but today we're only going to do one side of this. Look how beautiful and dark that is. But I'm going to take, you could leave it like that and let it dry, but I'm going to take this paper towel and I'm just going to gently wipe off the excess and then rub in what's left, and it's beautiful. I have this resin piece that my friend Myra from Farm Fresh Design 59 poured for me from a Prima Redesign mold, and it is beautiful. And I mixed some cake batter and some, I put it on the screen, I can't remember, I believe it was faded burlap. I mixed them together to get the color that I wanted that's going to match this transfer from IOD, and it's from the Joie de Roses. They are beautiful. They are large transfers like you would want to put on furniture. But guess what? Well, we don't have to use them for their intended purposes. No. We can be creative. We can just cut out what we want. So I put this on the board and measured it out and cut out what I wanted. And then I decided I wanted that little bitty rose right there, that little rosebud, how beautiful it is. And so I just cut it out and decided I wanted to put it on the other side because I do like asymmetrical designs, but I decided I wanted this one to be a little bit more symmetrical. So I'm just going to put that little rosebud right over there, and I'll just put it right there. We can just piece these transfers together however we want, and you can layer them on top of each other. That works perfectly. In case you're new to transfers, you just peel them off their backing, lay them on your project. You better make sure they're where you want them when you lay them down because they're there. Okay, and so then you just take the little stick that's provided and you rub it down, and then you gently lift, and just like I'm doing, lift it up, and if some of it doesn't adhere as you're lifting, you just put it back down and rub it a little bit more, and then you take that carrier sheet and rub all over it to what we call burnish. So that gets all the little pieces stuck down really good, and there is a little bit sometimes of some tacky around the edges, and that just rubs it off and makes it feel like that this transfer belongs on this piece of wood, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Now this is a very large piece. Large pieces with less detail really transfer much better, and you're going to see this as I do this. Now I'm rubbing, these have grid lines which help you with placement, and it helps me be able to tell where I've actually used that stick. But see how easy this pulls up, and then when I get up here to the details, I have to use my stick to rub it a little bit more. Do you see how I'm creating that little we call it a wave? I'm creating that wave and pushing it, and that helps to create that. I don't know the science of it, but it helps to be able to lift it up a little bit easier. I don't know, that works for me. Everybody has their own method, so you do what works for you. Now I'm going to put my little piece on here to see where I want it, but first I'm going to take some DIY white wax. Now I get all my IOD products, my DIY products from Sammy over at unicorndustdesigns.com. You will hear me mention another website in this video, but they are no longer in business, and so I couldn't redo that voiceover, so I just put Sammy's website on the screen for you, and it's always in my description boxes. So I just put that wax on there and wiped it back a little bit just to bring out the details. Now I thought that I was going to use some raffia. My friend Myra suggested it. We were talking on Marco Polo, which we do pretty regularly because we're friends, and she suggested the raffia because it would look like something the birds would put in their nests, and I thought it was a genius idea. She's so smart and so creative, but it wasn't very sturdy, and as I was tying it up, it started ripping. So you know me, I get out my chiffon ribbon because it's so beautiful. So I'm picking these colors and seeing which one matches the best and which one I like the best. And then I love the crocheted ribbon and a little bit of twine because, you know, birds use a lot of different things in their nests. And so I thought this would be very nice to have a lot of different textures in this little hanger. So that's what I did. And so I just tied it up at the top in a little knot to secure it, and voila. You could just use twine, you can just use whatever you like, but this is what I like. I'm going to use a little bit of Type Bond Quick and Thick and some hot glue to secure our little resin piece down on here, and I'm going to end up clear waxing this entire piece to seal it so it will be nice and finished. I had a really hard time getting a good picture that depicted how beautiful this piece really is, but I hope that you can tell. I had previously used this little cutting board in a project and it didn't sell in my booth, so I sanded it down the best I could, and I didn't mind that there was a little bit left on it because that's going to give it character. Now I'm going through my TDS, the DIY Struggle, what are these called? Oh, they are called decoupage papers. And she sent me some beautiful ones a while back, and I've used some of them, but I wanted to put some decoupage paper on this. So I'm showing you what I had to choose from, and I was kind of struggling. I loved that butterfly. I thought that would be beautiful. I loved that flower, and I'm using this to see if it's going to look good on there. I loved that clock, but I wasn't feeling it. I kept working. I loved that hydrangea. I loved the florals. I loved the writing. But I settled on this one with the bees, and I just love that. So then I get my little, this is the one that okay, so this is what I mixed together. I put that on the screen. That's what I also used on the birds. I did this in reverse. I did this project first. So, okay, this makes sense to me now. Okay. So I'm going to paint this, both sides and the edges, with this paint. And then I'm going to let it dry completely before we start decoupaging. And then I'm going to take that decoupage paper and I'm going to lay it on there and where I want, what image I want on my board. As soon as I get through painting, I don't know why I'm showing y'all all this painting. I guess I think you all don't know how to paint. Okay, maybe I just forgot to edit this part out. Okay, now it's all painted. There you go. Isn't that a beautiful color? And look how pretty it looks with that paper. Okay, sometimes I amaze myself when I mix. Okay, so now I'm going to see what I want. I love that little stump with the mushrooms, and then the bees are going to be on there and some of that honeycomb. And so I just press with my finger around the edges of that cutting board, and then I take a little paintbrush with some water, and I saturate the edges pretty good. I do it a couple times around there. And then I take it and I just rip it with my fingers. And then sometimes I take that little putty knife that's over to the right and I use it to help me. And then I'm going to take Mod Podge and this absolutely wonderful fan brush that Brandy sent me from the why do I have trouble saying the DIY struggle? She has a website, the DIYstruggle.com, where she sells her products. Go check her out. She has some wonderful products there with wonderful prices. Now she says a little spritzy spritz. She makes me giggle every time she says that. She's going to give her little paper a little spritzy spritz. I love it. So we're going to spray it with a little bit of mist and get our decoupage paper wet, and that helps with avoiding wrinkles, friends. And so I'm going to use that fan brush, and it just spreads it out. I mean, game changer. I've always done the iron-on method, which I do absolutely still love. It is my favorite method, but this fan brush and wetting this decoupage paper makes all the difference in the world. If I'm going to use tissue paper or a napkin, I'm absolutely going to use the iron-on method. But this is so smooth. Now I'm going to take this little pokey tool. You could use a pencil. You could use anything you wanted. But I'm going to then create that whole back. Okay, now that's completely dry. And I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to use this card cleaning rag from Dollar Tree because it's really soft, and to protect the other side that's already finished. Now I'm trying to decide what I want on this side. And I love the bee, I love the honeycomb, but ultimately I decided to use that little kind of floral piece, and I'm not going to cover this entire side. So this little floral part, we're just going to have it coming in off the side. So you can see I'm just using that paintbrush, and I'm just drawing around the edge of it, and I get it pretty saturated, and then it just tears very easy. This rice paper, or whatever she uses to do her decoupage paper, is so wonderful. And y'all, I know I'm from Texas, and I don't always pronounce my words right, and it's really hard for me to say decoupage correctly, so just bear with me, okay? Tomato, just bear with me. Now I got this a little bit too wet, so I'm tapping it, making sure it's all got moisture all over it, okay? So now I'm just this was a little bit difficult. I probably should have, while it was still moist, laid it down and pressed it and made my paint a little bit wet, so I could have seen exactly where I needed to put the Mod Podge. But I ended up having Mod Podge all over my project, which created a problem when I went to distress it. You will see. But in fact, this turns out to be absolutely gorgeous in the end. So all is not lost, right? If we just keep on. See, I ended up having a Mod Podge because the Mod Podge, I got it further out on the edges. So now I go to distress it, and the Mod Podge is like glue, so it's all peeling up, and it was kind of a hot mess, but I ended up being able to distress it as much as I wanted, and it was a little difficult. It was a little bit of a struggle, but it worked. In the end, it worked, and you can see that a little bit of that blue paint came back out that was original on there, so that was great. Now I went and got my Birds and Bees IOD stamp, and I'm going to grab a couple of those little bees out of there, and this stone gray ink, because I wanted it to be a little bit subtle. And I have this little piece of plastic that I cut off of some carrier sheet or something that I had, and it works perfect. Now I'm going to clean up the edges so I don't have that little black outline with my baby wipe, and then I'm going to press down, straight down, holding with one hand, pressing with the other, and lift straight up. And look how cute. Now I'm just going to put a couple of large bees and a couple of smaller bees around the edges over here, like they're kind of flying away from the flower with their pollen. I love to make up stories about my DIYs. Do you guys do that, or no? Do you just create? I like to just have a little story going on in my head when I'm creating. Now I'm going to take the IOD Vintage Texture stamp, and that one in the bottom right I love. I use this one the most, and I'm just going to stamp up the corner, and I'm kind of out of frame when I do part of this, but I restamp it, and then you just watch me. I just restamp out of frame, and then just press it down in various little places just to give it a little bit more character. And then just a piece of twine on top, tied in a knot, and I did seal it up with some clear wax. I don't think I got any of the clear wax sealing on this, but I did the sides and this with the clear wax. The other one had the Mod Podge on it, so I did not seal it. And then I just had this little twine bow that I had made for a previous project and didn't use, and this one is done. Hello friends, and welcome back. Today I have a video using some antique biscuit cutters. If you have your grandmother's old biscuit cutter and you really don't want to use it but you want to keep it, I have some ideas for you. Hopefully they will inspire you to make something cute with it so you can have a keepsake for you and your children to come. Let's get crafting. I wish these three little cutters were my grandmother's, but they are not. They are not even a family heirloom. I picked up this little biscuit cutter and these two little cookie cutters at a little antique shop for $6 for the three of them. So we're going to start out with this little one. I tried to sand it a little bit. I wanted to distress it a little bit, but I was afraid I was going to ruin the integrity of it, so I just used some dark wax on it. I did try to sand and scuff up the cutter part of it and put some dark wax on it just to make it look a little bit more old, and I achieved the look that I was going for. Now I'm going to use this little mini cutting board from Aldi. I got these on clearance a couple years ago and I'm still using them. I bought, quite a few of them because that's what I do. If they're on clearance and I think I want one or two of them, I buy 10 or 12 of them. That's just what I do. Okay, so I just sanded it down a little bit, scuffed up the edges, and then I have these little tacks, they're furniture tacks, in my stash, so I thought one of them would look good in that hole, and it's not going to completely cover the hole, so we can still use it to hang this on the wall. We're going to make a little sconce. So I'm going to mark right in the middle where I want to drill a little hole where I'm going to hang this little cutter on here, so we're going to put a little tea light in it to make a little sconce. I'm just going to drill a little hole to make a pre-drilled hole. I'm going to drill a little hole in the cutter, which was not an easy task, I'm not going to lie. And then I'm just going to take a little screw and I'm going to screw it in there. Now I had this baker's twine left over from Christmas a couple years ago. I just keep stuff in my stash. I don't throw anything away. I'm just going to wrap it around the top a couple times, adhere it with some hot glue. And then, my favorite little crocheted lace ribbon. We're just going to make a simple little, I don't even know if you want to call this a bow, but if you want to call it a bow, we'll call it a bow. I'm just going to call it just a little piece of ribbon on top. We're going to pinch it together in the middle, and let me just get my little extra fingers right there, and some people call them tweezers. And we're just going to put a little glue. I'm going to put the glue on those little pieces of ribbon, which is actually, it's not a piece of ribbon. It's a piece of that twine that I separated. And this is how it turned out. Super simple, but I love it. I love the versatility of it, where I can take just a little tea light and put in there. I wouldn't use a real flame for obvious reasons. And then I put a little votive in it, which I thought was just adorable. And then I had a little spool, and I just put a few little sprigs of greenery in it, which I thought was adorable as well. Now our next one is going to be the little heart cookie cutter, and another one of the mini cutting boards. Now I have a little piece of wax. It's just a wax melt. I didn't have a non-scented candle or anything like that, but this works great. I thought I had a great idea here. I was going to put it on. I was going to put this marquee by DIY, this little red paint all over it. Well, I don't paint the back yet. I did end up painting the back, but I just did the sides and the front with this marquee. And then I was going to chip away a little bit of it. Nope, I didn't. I was rubbing it. I used my heat gun and it heated that wax up. And then when I was dusting it off, it already chipped some of that paint. So you can see how awesome this is going to work. So then I take vintage linen, and I forgot that I was going to put some more of that wax on top of the marquee. So I went back and I put some of that wax on top of the marquee. And actually, when that vintage linen dried over on the right side, I put some wax on top of the vintage linen and then put another coat of vintage linen on top. I hope that makes sense. Okay, you see me putting another coat of vintage linen on there. And then I did the sides and the back with vintage linen. And then I dried it with my heat gun and I could see where that wax was. I did not get on camera. Oopsie, sorry. And I scraped it with that little Cricut scraper. You see it over there on the right side next to my pencil? I used that to scrape away and make the paint look chippy. And you can see where I put that under the marquee that it went all the way down to the wood. So I love the way this turned out. Now I'm marking where I want to pre-drill my little holes. I drilled the holes in the cookie cutter first, and I wanted to do 2. And then I'm drilling the holes in the cutting board now. And then I'm just going to use 2 little nails that are a little bit thicker than the holes and just hammer, hammer, hammer. Now, I did kind of mess up the cookie cutter a little bit, but luckily they're just little aluminum and they bend right back into shape. So I'm just going to put that little nail in there and pound it a few times. And, you know, I got it a little crooked, so I had to bend it back where it needs to go, pull it back over there where it needs to go, and then just hammer it back into shape. It was hard because the cookie cutter was, you know, a little bit in the way, but I managed. So here I'm bending it back into shape where it needs to go, and it's good. It's great. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of twine, and this is a little bit thicker twine. I believe this is the Dollar Tree twine that you get in the craft section, and I'm just going to wrap it around a couple times, tie it in a little bow, just a simple little shoestring bow right there at the top, just keeping it simple. I just really want to keep these pretty simple, these 2 little mini cutting board ones. And then you're going to see how adorable this one gets styled as well. I'm just going to cut those little tails off. I thought at first I wanted them to hang pretty long, and then I decided we'll just cut those off a little bit. And here we go. Okay, let's see how we can style this one up. Here it is without anything in it, so you can see how it turned out. And then here it is with a little glass votive cup with a votive candle in it, battery operated, of course. And then we have to, you know, do fire safety. And then with a smaller little votive with a tea light, battery operated. And then I took one of those peat moss planters, little pots, put some twine around it and poked some little greeneries in it. And I think it just turned out adorable. Okay, here's our last one, and this is the biscuit cutter. This is my favorite one. And so this is just a piece of scrap wood. I mentioned a few weeks back I did a cross with some of this same scrap wood from a man who makes rocking chairs, and these are just some of his scraps from the cuts that he makes. And so this was a very interesting piece of wood, and so I'm going to use it to create this cute little wall sconce. So I painted it with vintage linen, and now I'm taking Old 57 and Farm Fresh, and I'm going to make my own color. I used mostly Farm Fresh, but I added a little bit of that Old 57 in there just to brighten it up a little bit. Now I have this little hen, a rooster. Is this a rooster? I think this is a rooster, from the Fleur de Lis molds from IOD, and then the Village Market has this little wheat looking molds, and so I poured those. Previously, when I had some leftover resin, I just start pouring into all the molds when I have leftover resin. So I had these little pieces, and I'm just going to paint them. You see, just dab, dab, dab. And then, you know, I thought that little rooster needed a little extra dab, and I reached up there and dabbed it. And then I'm going to take my heat gun and dry it. I love to watch the process of that paint dry. Now I'm going to take my Titebond, quick and thick, my favorite glue. And I will tell you that you may think this is a little pricey when you look at the price of this, but it goes a long way. You do not have to use a lot of this glue. And I've been using this same bottle ever since I got it. Ever since the first time you've ever seen me use this, this is that same bottle that I'm still using. I store it upside down so all the glue, you know, falls down to the lid, so I don't have to shake, shake, shake it. And then when it gets close to being empty, which it's getting close, it's all down where I need it to be. So I'm just going to use a little hot glue and a little Titebond, quick and thick, and I'm going to adhere these adorable little pieces to my wood piece. Same process with all of them. The wood glue, the hot glue. The hot glue helps it adhere quickly while the Titebond dries, which it dries very quickly, but I don't want them moving around while I finish it up. So I'm going to take that vintage linen and do some dry brushing to bring out all those beautiful details on the IOD molds. And I'm going to slow this one down a little bit so you can see I'm just brushing across the raised areas instead of with the raised areas. See, on the legs I'm going across instead of up and down. I go across the raised areas so I don't get down in in the details down in the depths of it so it stays dark. I'm only getting the light color on the highlights. So I think that's what makes it look beautiful. Now this wired jute cord comes from Dollar Tree, and if you've ever worked with it, you know that it unravels really easy. But I'm going to show you a trick. As soon as I drill some holes, I'm going to drill a hole on each side of this at the top with this drill. Now you're not going to be able to see me do it real good. Oh, you're not going to see me do it at all because the drill was in the camera. So I'm going to take this. Now I like to take my Quick Bond and just twist it around the end so that it glues that jute twine all together. And I'm going to put some hot glue down in that hole, and I'm just going to, you know, poke that twine down in there. And then I'm going to hold it there for a little bit till it just, the glue dries a little bit. And then I'm going to bend that up. Okay, now I'm going to put this glue on. I got this bright idea, and it worked out beautifully. I'm going to put the glue on before I cut it. And then I'm going to cut right in the middle of where I glued. So the end of that, when I put it up, I'm twisting it, and then it's going to stay. So, yes, that was a smart idea I did. I have a good idea every once in a while. Some of those good ideas just come to me out of nowhere. I'm going to say the Lord gives me those good ideas because, you know, I pray every day that the Lord will give me wisdom in all the things that I do. And He even loves that I craft, so He gives me wisdom in crafting too. Don't know what I would do a day without Him in my life. So I'm going to do that on both sides. You can see I'm just, and that jute twine wants to kind of ball up on the outside. That's okay. I just poked the wire down in there and poked it all as best I could, and it kind of looks good with it, a little bit of it sticking out. So I'm just bending and poking, and, you know, you just make it however you want to. It's not likely you're going to have this exact piece of wood. It would look great on just a, you know, any scrap wood, a 2x4 or 1x6, any of it. So I drilled a hole in the back to hang it in case you don't want to hang it by that piece of twine. Now this one, did I not show you how I put I put that biscuit cutter on the same way I put everything else on. And now I'm showing you how I styled it up with pretty much the same basic ideas as the previous ones. Hello friends, in today's video, I'm going to DIY the last 5 of my mini cutting boards that I picked up at Aldi on clearance sometime back. So I'm going to give you a little sneak peek preview. This is my favorite. Just a quick look, and you're going to be amazed at how simple and easy that very cute rustic mini cutting board was to do. Here's another one. A couple of them I did double-sided with a paint inlay and some IOD stamps. What are we waiting for? Let's get started. These are the last of the cutting boards that I have in my stash. So we're going to use them up. Some of them we're going to do double-sided, and these are the ones we're using today. So first of all, we're going to get started with sanding a few of them down. I sanded in those little crevices with my little finger sander and sanded around some of the edges that were rough, and on the colored ones I sanded off just a little bit of the paint to make them look a little bit more rustic, just like I did on this little gray one. And then I cleaned them all off and got ready to paint them. So this one I'm just going to paint in the center with some skeleton key by DIY. And then I'm going to use this paint inlay, and you're going to recognize this as the one I used on that letter organizer that I did a few weeks ago. And this is my second time to use this same inlay. So we're going to see how it turns out. Now I'm just putting this down here, and I'm using this little skewer to almost cut this. I'm pressing it down in that little groove, and it's almost cutting it for me, but it's making it where I can see where I need to cut it. And when I cut it, I'm going to cut it right inside that line so that it doesn't overlap, and it fits just perfectly in there. Now I'm going to give this one good coat, little thin coat of skeleton key, and then whenever I get ready to do the inlay, I'll give it another little thin coat to do the inlay. But for now, I'm going to dry this down really good so I can go to the back side. And then I'm going to give the back side, the entire back side of it, one good coat of skeleton key. Maybe I did 2 coats. Now I'm going to take a little bit of vintage linen, and I'm going to just dry brush a little bit around the edges and then just a little bit through the center with this old chippy brush that I have. It's just an old stiff bristled brush that's old. And then I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to do a little bit of the vintage linen on the wood grain look. Now I have this stamp from IOD, from the Pastiche stamp collection, and I'm just going to use this little bird on here, and I'm going to show you how I use the mask. I use the mask in a couple of these DIYs, and they work so great. The masks also work really good to help lay out your design. I'm going to show you that a little bit later too. But I stamp those little birds. They're so precious, and I just use a wet wipe to clean those stamps off, and then a paper towel to dry it off. And now I dried it with the heat gun to get it nice and dry, and I'm going to put that little mask over the birds. Now I'm going to use from the Veranda stamp collection this lattice, and I'm going to lay it right on top of there. Now you need to be really careful to get right around that mask all up next to it and press it in really good. And that turned out really good. Okay, so I did not get on camera where I did the actual inlay on there. So I did a coat of the skeleton key and pressed my damp inlay in there. And then I let it dry completely. And then now you're seeing me spritz it down and pulling it back. I have plenty of videos where I do paint inlays. I apologize that I did not get this on camera. And now I'm drying it completely, and this is the second time I use the paint inlay, and look how beautiful it looks. I love how this turned out. And I'm trying to decide what I'm going to use to put a little bow around the top or wrap something around the top. The lace is really pretty, but I'm really into this chiffon ribbon these days, and I ordered some white off of Shein. I got this off Shein, and I ordered both of these ribbons that you see here on the same day. And so I'm just going to wrap it around a little bit and tie just a knot, and then I'm going to let the tails look like a little bow. Now I'm going to flip it over on the other side, and I'm just going to take some little teeny tiny bits of greenery and floral and a little tiny pearl bead, put in the inside of that little flower with a little bit of hot glue. I'm using my tweezers so I don't burn my fingers. And I think this just turned out precious. I love this stamp. I love the inlay. And it's two-sided. What's better? Next, we're going to use some IOD transfers, and this is the Milo's transfer page book, a page out of the book, and they're all different fruits. I was going to cut a lot of different little fruits and try to place them on there, but I couldn't place them how I liked them. And I think you're supposed to use this whole page as one because all the little fruit are numbered. So I just decided to lay it on top of there and cut it out and make it fit over the whole entire thing. And I just put it right on top of the natural wood color. I didn't want to paint it or anything. So I just used this rub-on transfer, and you can see I love to get that little bubble on there and just push the bubble, and it just works good to do the transfer like that to me. And just rub and rub and rub that transfer down into the wood and gently pull on that carrier sheet or push that little bubble up. And then when it is all complete. If some of it comes up with your transfer sheet, you just lay the transfer sheet back down and rub a little bit more. And then I'm going to take that transfer sheet and burnish it down. And then take my little sander and sand off the edges and make sure that that's all pushed down in there really nicely, and that turns out beautiful. Now on the other side, I'm going to use the IOD primitive mold, and I'm going to use some air dry clay. Now I ordered the DOS air dry clay. I finally broke down and did it. And so I'm going to put some cornstarch in the molds, and I was just showing you there which ones I wanted to use. I'm just using a fan brush to put that cornstarch in there, and I don't put a whole lot in there, and it works just fine. Now I'm just going to open up this DOS air dry clay. I got it from Amazon, and I just worked it in my hands a little to soften it up. Now, I'm not the best at this, so if you want a tutorial on how to actually do this, you might want to watch somebody else's, but it's not really that hard. You just press it down in there, and you just take something like an old gift card, or I'm using this knockoff Cricut tool that I got at Dollar Tree, and these IOD stamps are amazing. They have a little micro ledge there, and you can just scrape it off to make the back all nice and smooth and even. I'm not going to show you every single one of these because it gets a little redundant, but this is how I did it. And then I just took that little skewer and pulled off all the little extra pieces. Now, I get all my IOD and DIY products from Sammy at unicorndustdesigns.com. So please go over to her website and check out all the goodies that she has for sale. She has all the products and thrift flips and home decor makeovers and all kinds of things for sale over there. I'm going to adhere this to my project with Titebond Quick and Thick. And it is really thick. And this was really thick. And I ended up spraying a little water on my silicone mat and putting my paintbrush in it and just making my paintbrush a little bit wet. And then it smeared a little bit easier. And it did not affect how it adhered at all. And so you just see what I'm doing there. And this air dry clay worked really good for me. I did not have any cracking or any shrinkage or anything with this. I was very, very pleased with it. So I just used this same method and glued down all my pieces down to this little cutting board. I had gotten these cutting boards at Aldi some time back, and they came in a 4-pack. So this one had 2 of this size, the large ovals, and then the little round one that I just finished. There were 2 of those in the same pack, so there were 4. And they were originally like $5 and something, which is not a bad deal. You can see how I'm piecing this piece together. I had to make 2 pieces. I'm just going to piece it together. But these little cutting boards, I got them on clearance. They had marked them down to $2.99. And then some of them I got for $1.49. So I bought a lot of them. And so I've done a lot of projects, and I've given some away. And this is the last of them. So unless I find some more, you won't see any more mini cutting boards unless I make them myself, which is a great possibility because I have a ton of scrap wood. So I'm going to use cake batter and aviary to just paint these little pieces. And it was a little bit tedious to do, but it turns out great, so it was totally worth it. Then I'm going to take White Wax by DIY, and I'm going to paint it on there. And then I'm going to take a little paper towel and wipe it back so the white wax stays in the details. And then I decide that I'm going to put a little white wax actually on the wood as well. So you see I'm just taking a little paper towel, and I'm doing this very, very, very gently. Very gently. Because my air dry clay is still not completely set up. I'm working with it still a little bit wet. And then I'm just taking this white wax and just kind of waxing that wood a little bit. Put a little bit on and wipe a little bit off. And I just love how that turned out. Now I'm going to take 2 different types of string that I have. I have some white twine and some cotton string, and I'm going to combine the 2 of them together and just tie it in a little knot there, and then cut off the ends so that they're not quite so long. Trim it up, and then I'm going to unravel them so that they look a little frayed. Not afraid, because we have faith over fear in this house, so we're not afraid. And then I'm going to flip it over and see how it looks from the back side. Then I'm just going to make out of, oh yes, this is 3 ply, so I unraveled it and just took one of the plies of the 3 ply of that twine and made a small little bow. And it looks a little bit frayed, and that's okay because I like that look. And then I just hot glue that to the center. And this one is done. And I love that it's 2-sided. Next up, we're going to use the small square gray one. It's got a little bit of a blue gray, and we're going to use this IOD transfer pack called Wallflower. And I just cut off a little blue flower out of there, and I just cut it up into all the little pieces that I wanted. And I just decided the placement kind of at random how I wanted to put it on there. And I'm just going to put a little piece hanging off the side over here. And then I'm going to put the other flower on. And, you know, that's the great thing about these transfers is that you can place them wherever you want and you can cut them up. You don't have to use the transfers in one big, huge piece. I mean, they're beautiful like that if you have a piece big enough to use. But if you don't, you can just cut those flowers up. And like this was supposed to be off the side or the end of it or connected to another piece, and I just put it on the side of this little small mini cutting board, and I think it looks really good. And I really love the way this one turns out, and that blue with that gray, it just looks great. And I had sanded it down a little bit before to make it look a little distressed. I'm just burnishing it down, and when you do that, it smooths out any of the little glue pieces that might be around the edges of the transfer. So I think the IOD transfers have less of that than any transfers I've ever used. So I'm just going to take some of the leaves and the vines and just put them kind of all over where I think they look good. And, you know, this is where, you know, everybody may have a different idea and think, oh, I would have never put that there. Well, put it wherever you think that it would look good, you know. That's why everybody's projects are so individual, because we all like something different. But this is just how I chose to do mine. And then I'm going to take my little sander and I am going to just rough it up a little bit. Not a whole lot, because I worked hard to put that on there. Then I'm going to take a little bit more of that chiffon ribbon and make a little hanger. And this one's done. So simple, so easy, and so pretty. Okay, this one is hands down my favorite. We're going to use the IOD Mercantile stamp with this rectangular green one. And you can see I'm going to also use the Apothecary labels. These are the small letters. And I used those masks to lay out how I wanted my image to look, and that helps so much. So we're going to use this little rooster with some black IOD ink, and I'm going to stamp him in the middle toward the bottom. And you can see that I sanded down that little cutting board as well, because it was a solid, it's kind of a minty green, a little bit of a minty green, but I sanded it down. And I'm going to stamp that little rooster right down there where you see. And I'm just going to put it down, hold it with one hand, press it with the other, make sure that that makes contact, every little piece of that, and then lift it straight up. And the detail in that is just absolutely perfection. I dried it with my heat gun so that it's completely dry. And now this grain sack stripe, I'm going to use the tomato ink from IOD. And I've got that mask on that rooster. So this ink is going to go on the mask and not on the rooster that I stamped. And I'm going to press it down. Now, I did not press it down around my mask enough. I don't know what I was thinking. I just didn't. And you can see when I lift that mask off, you can already see it, that it didn't go quite down far enough. But that's okay, because once I sand it, it looks great. Okay, so I put these little letters from the apothecary label on there, and it's going to say Farm Fresh. But I only had one F and one R, so I'm going to do Farm-ish first. Farm-ish. My granddaughter was there. You're going to see her little hands in the frame in just a little bit. I just couldn't edit them out. I had to leave them in. So I cleaned them off, and then I realized that I inked it all up and I only needed the FR. But I'd left the ESH on there so I could line it up. Maybe I already had Lexi's hands in there. No, there they are. Here they come. So Farm Fresh. I love that. Here's her little hands. She was in there visiting with me while I was crafting. Now I'm going to take this little finger sander, and all around where that I should have gotten it closer in, I'm just going to sand it down a little bit with just the edges of that. Just soften it up so it's not quite so obvious that it stops so sudden. And then I just sand it lightly over the whole thing. Very lightly, because I don't want to destroy all the details. And we both ended up loving this one. And then I'm just going to clear wax it with DIY clear wax. I'm going to seal it. And then I just put a piece of jute as a hanger. And this one's done. And like I said, this is hands down my favorite one of this video. But let me know what you think. Okay, we have another one of the oval ones in the wood grain, and we're going to use Crinoline and Summer Crush by DIY, and this is going to be a two-sided one. This is going to be a seasonal one. So the first one's going to be a fall one. We're going to do a pumpkin with Summer Crush, and I'm using one of those makeup brushes, almost said sponge, a makeup brush, and not using a whole lot of paint on there. I'm going in circular motions and going to just put orange where I want orange. Or the Summer Crush, it is an orange color. It's almost like UT, University of Texas color. And then I used a little bit of weathered wood on top of it, and a little bit of aviary, on that green. And I did 2 coats. I did 2 coats of paint with this stencil. So I did, a thin coat so it didn't bleed. I had no bleeding. This stencil is from Essential Stencil. It's really hard for me to say that. Essential Stencil. It's part of their fall. I think it has 4 of them in there in that little pack. I'm using Crinoline to do Farm, and then I'm going to go and do Fresh. And sometimes I like to go ahead and paint in the little areas where the letters do not connect, but I didn't in this one. For some reason, I really liked how that looked. So it says Farm Fresh. Then I dried it with my heat gun so that I could work on the other side. Now on this side, I pulled out some transfers I had gotten off Amazon or maybe Etsy. I can't remember if it was Etsy or Amazon. I've had these in my stash for quite some time, but I believe this is redesigned by Prima, and it was going to work perfectly. This particular one fits perfectly on here. So I'm going to take some vintage linen, and I'm just going to put a very, very light coat of paint, a little heavier than a dry brush, maybe just a heavy dry brush on there. And then I'm going to just sand it where it's a little bit smooth so that it's, the paint is smooth for the transfer. I'm going to take the transfer off the carrier sheet, hover it make sure it's where I want it before I let it touch, because once it touches, there's no picking it back up. And then I'm going to do that same process of rubbing it down with the little plastic stick that comes with the transfers, and then just lift and rub as I go down, and it comes up really easy. These transfers go on really nice and easy too. And so this is a really cute little transfer for a very vintage Christmas look. I love two-sided things that are fall and Christmas, because then you don't have to put it all away. And there we go. And we're going to burnish it and sand the edges a little bit where we had a little overhang, and just smooth out the top. We're going to seal it with some clear wax. Both sides, seal both sides. Oh, we're going to sand this side a little bit first. Okay. And if you get a little paint somewhere, then you can just sand that off. Not sure why I was sanding my finger, but okay. Oh, I was telling you I was using the corner of it. I just use the corner of it sometimes just to sand. Okay, I have a little piece of black and white checked ribbon, and I just cut it and dovetailed the ends of it. And I'm just going to tie a little piece of embroidery thread in the center to pinch it up to make it look like a bow, a teeny tiny little bow. And I decided that it was still a little bit too big, so I did cut it down just a tiny little bit more. And then we're going to just use a little dab of hot glue and glue that there. I'm going to make a little tiny twine bow and put a little dab of hot glue, and we're going to put it right there. And this one is complete. So let me know in the comments which one of these mini cutting boards is your favorite. I went outside and I cut this scrap piece of wood to look like a cutting board. Now this piece was left over from a project my husband and I did. We made a cupcake stand, and this piece of wood was really warped. Once we got the cupcake stand ready to assemble, we realized that this piece of wood was really warped. So it's been in my little stash of scrap wood for a while, because there's only certain projects it would work good on. So I took it outside and cut it, and it's perfect for this one. And so I'm just staining it with some stain. I decided to actually use some stain on this one, and I'm using a sponge brush and just going to stain the front, back, sides, all of it. And then I'm going to take it inside once it's and I'll let it dry for probably about 4 to 6 hours. And I'm going to measure down however far I wanted it to be. I'm going to do that part blue, and then I'm going to put some stripes. And then my cousin helped me decide how far the stripes needed to be, because I wanted them to start red, end red, just like the flag. And I am not good with numbers, y'all. I am not good with measurements or numbers. I want to eyeball everything, and I just could not figure it out, because it was 7 1/4 inches wide. Now, if it had been 8 inches wide, now we're going to make them 2 inches each, that would have been easy. But no. It was not even. So, that made it even harder. So, being the smart, intelligent person she is, she helped me. And so I got it all, drawn out and then taped off. I painted this with the Hey Sailor. Got it painted. I didn't do like really full coverage. I just did one coat, because I liked that the wood showed through a little bit, and you'll see in the end why. Now I'm taping off the parts that I don't want red, and then I'm going to use that marquee again, and I'm going to do one coat of marquee, and I'm painting away from that tape because I don't want it to seep under. So I'm pulling the paint away from that tape. I'm trying to really kind of exaggerate it so you can see that I'm pulling away. My big fat hand's kind of in the way, but anyway, that's what I did. And the good thing about the DIY paint is it's water soluble, so if you make a boo-boo, you can take that wet wipe and just erase it. Now I'm taking all the paint off, and look at those lines so you can see there. Okay, now I used my Cricut. Here's the plug for Cricut. Cricut did not sponsor this video, so I didn't feel the need to really do a big Cricut video, but I did cut these little stars out on my Cricut. I didn't want to do a sticky stencil because I didn't want it to pull my paint up or take that chance, but I do love to do paper stencils when I'm just going to use it one time like this. And I didn't care even if it bled a little bit because it's so rustic, but I did not get any bleeding. And then I just kept moving my paper around until I got the stars everywhere that I wanted them. You do have to be careful that you don't have any paint on the back side of that paper when you lay it back down. Then I wrapped some twine around here and made my little knot a little bit off-centered. And I had this little solar wood flower. That's not really what they are, but they come from Dollar Tree. And I just put that on there, and that is that. How simple. I'm out in my shop. I'm looking for some scrap wood. Let's see what I can find. I have sheets of plywood over here that were donated to me. They were given to me by a sweet client's husband who was cleaning out his garage. I still have a lot of spindles. I've used a lot. I've given a lot of them away. Still have a lot of those. I've a seat to a chair that I use the legs for spindles. I have a couple of old chairs, some old chairs, a bunch of junk. I have still some of that flooring that my sister-in-law found for me on the side of the road. A lot of junk. I have a couple of scraps here. There's some good stuff in there. Lots of sawdust from the saw above it. Lots of nice long pieces here. Not really suitable for my inspiration piece. Ooh, wait. Well, what do we have here? Yes, I think these two pieces will work out of all of this. Spindles, pieces of furniture I took apart. Lots of scrap wood that's been donated or found on the side of the road. Guys, keep your eyes peeled and pick up scrap wood. These are the two pieces I'm going to be using today. Let's go. Okay, the first thing we have to do to make our cutting boards is to give them that shape. We need to make a handle. So I cut this little template out on a piece of paper. Yes, it was super windy that day, most days in Texas. So I took a piece of paper, folded it in half, and cut the shape I wanted so that both sides would be the same. And then I just laid it on my board and traced around it. But you're going to see that once I cut one side, I just flipped it over and cut the other side to match. That was the easiest thing for me to do. So here we go, tracing around it. Get a good nice dark line so you can see it when you start to cut. So here I'm with my handy dandy jigsaw. I've had this jigsaw for years. It's probably not the best quality, but hey, it gets the job done. So I'm just going to go right around that line, taking it nice and slow and easy. And ta-da! First half is done. Now I flipped it over because I wanted this to be on the right side. On my right side. Not the correct side, but my right side. So I just flipped it over and traced that off on that side so I could have both sides the same. Now for my second piece, it's a longer piece, so I traced out a longer handle. And I decided I wanted that inside curve to be a little bit curvier than what I had actually drawn. So here I go with my hair in the way, and I did not have my safety goggles on. Don't scold me. I should have, but y'all, the wind was blowing so hard I couldn't barely
even keep my head on, much less glasses on my face. So this time I just decided to take the piece that I had cut off and put it on there and draw it. Okay, so sanding it all down, I started with 150, ended with 400 grit. I just sanded all my edges nice and smooth, the fronts, the backs, the tops, all of it on both pieces. And then when we get it all sanded down, wipe it down real good, and then I'm going to take it inside the craft cottage. My husband actually came out and used these huge drill bits, look at these, and drilled the holes in the handles for me. Then I took one of the handles from one of these foam paint brushes, because I never throw them away, and I wrapped some sandpaper around it and made myself a little sanding tool that I could sand the inside of those holes. I thought that was pretty smart of me. Anyway, so then I'm taking a damp cloth, got them cut, got them sanded, got them clean, now ready to paint. So I'm using my DIY brush. It's a Klingon R14. I actually got this one from Bree, but you can get your DIY supplies, paints, paintbrushes, everything you need from Sammy at Unicorn Dust Designs, and her website will be linked in the description box below. I'm using White Swan by DIY to paint the front, sides, back, every inch of this board, and I'm giving it 2 coats. This is the longer one, and I'm going to give it 2 coats. I don't think I gave the back 2 coats, but all the rest of it got 2 coats. Now I'm going to get out my IOD transfers. This is that one. Yep, I'm not going to try to pronounce all those words. Flora something. Anyway, beautiful floral pieces. I get my IOD supplies from Two Chicks Home and Market. They're over in Denison, Texas. They have the cutest little shop downtown, but you can use the link in my description box to go there and shop. And if you're a first time purchaser, you get 10% off with that link. So be sure and go and get some IOD at 10% off. Now I'm just cutting these out. They line up real nicely. They're so easy to line up, and they look so beautiful. This is so much prettier than it is on camera. So much prettier in person. Okay, so I'm going to just rub this on. If you've never used a rub-on transfer before, they are super easy. Just lining it up where I want it to go. The grid helps to be able to line it up evenly. Now, I had to rub pretty firmly, and as I rubbed off those black lines. So I would say if you have a light colored background surface, to be careful, because I did get a little bit of that black on my white surface, and where I rubbed, I had to go back and touch it up with my White Swan paint, which was no big deal, but I'm just saying, you know, be careful. So I'm just rubbing and lifting and rubbing and lifting. And I did not get on camera where I put the big flower up on top, but you can see over there, I'm trying to point at the screen while I'm talking. You can see that you can see that black down there on the bottom underneath the leaves that I was talking about. And I'm burnishing, I'm all over the place with this, I'm sorry. I'm burnishing this now because if you have a little bit of that glue around the edges, that will disappear when you burnish it. Okay, so I did put that flower on, did the same process with that flower. That flower sat right on top of those green leaves. Okay, now I made this stencil with my Cricut, and I got that out of Cricut Design Space. I'm going to line it up, get it even, and burnish it down. And my handy dandy tweezers, I could not craft without them, to get that off there, make it nice and smooth. Then I'm going to take some Mod Podge. I always do this when I use stencils. Give it a coat of Mod Podge, and this will prevent bleeding. It works great for me every single time. So just go up and down, side to side, make sure it gets on there really good. And then I taped my edges so I didn't get any extra. Now I mixed some elephant gray and some black Waverly chalk paint. I didn't have the right color in the DIY, but I already ordered it and it's on its way. So I will have the right color next time. But I did have some, but it froze. It was part of that I'm replacing from the freeze when my paints got ruined. So I'm just dabbing with a makeup sponge and dabbing, dabbing, dabbing. Get it all. When I realize that I've got it all on there good, then I just remove all of that stencil very carefully. I do like to wait to get the insides out until it's dried a little bit, and then I wipe my tweezers off every time because a little bit of that black paint could be on those tweezers, so I wipe them off so that I don't make a big mess. And it's beautiful. So now I'm going to use the DIY clear wax and an old scrap piece of an old t-shirt, and I'm just going to rub that in all over this. This is completely dry. I'm going to rub it all over that transfer. It's going to seal it all down nicely. In case you're not familiar with DIY paints, they are clay-based, clay and mineral-based, I believe, and if they get wet, it will reactivate the paint so you can rub it and it will rub off. So it's very important that you seal it with some kind of sealer, a top coat, a wax, something. So this is how it turned out. It's huge. It is lovely. I think it turned out great. It was really hard to take pictures because it was so big. Okay, this next board, I painted it and I thought I could see some of the yellow from the wood coming through. I'm not sure that's what it was, but I took some polyacrylic on the other side before I did the next coat, and I gave it a good coat of polyacrylic and let it dry thoroughly for several hours. And then I'm using my White Swan again by DIY, and I'm giving it a good coat, 2 coats, front, back, sides, the whole 9 yards. Y'all, I'm apologizing for my voice. I've been a little bit under the weather today, and so my voice is a little scratchy. My throat is sore, so I apologize for that if it's hard to listen to me. Now I'm going to find the center of my board and put a tiny little light mark with my pencil, and then I'm going to find the center of my image. So I'm putting those letters together to find the center of my image, and then I'm going to hover over where I want the stencil to go before I start laying it down. Because once it's down, it's down. You can't really pick it back up. So put it down, burnish it good where all those little letters are going to be. And then, oh, I'm erasing the mark. Okay. And then I'm going to peel back the transfer tape, making sure that I'm burnishing down that stencil really good. Then I'm going to take the Mod Podge and give it a good coat, one good coat of Mod Podge all over the stencil, just where the paint is going to be, so that we won't have any bleeding. I do have stars at the bottom of this. You're about to see it because I'm going to flip it upside down. I did some stars at the bottom, and they're going to get a coat of Mod Podge as well because we don't want any of that paint bleeding through. It's too much work to have to go back. And occasionally I'll have to go back and do some touch-up painting, but normally it's when I peel the stencil off and I'm using my tweezers to peel up is usually when I drop a piece of the stencil or something on it and make a boo-boo. Or sometimes I don't get enough of my paint, like this black, I don't get enough of it. I think one of his hooves I didn't get enough paint on and I had to go and touch that up, but that kind of stuff is no big deal. Lots of bleeding, oh yeah, that's a big deal. So I've got this really sped up. I'm not really this fast at stenciling, but I'm just this time I'm using a little dauber. And I think I got these in a multi-pack at Michael's one time when they were on sale, or I had a coupon or something. Now I'm using that wet wipe to clean my fingers because I'm peeling this while it's wet. Oh, you can see that little star down there on the bottom right. I did mess that up, but I'll go back with a little tiny paintbrush and just clean that up later. It was not difficult. So it's all done now, all dry, and I'm going to take a sanding block and just distress it a little bit. I'm making this for a very special friend. Her family had a cattle farm for years, and so I'm just making this for her. And she likes, a little distressed farmhouse look, so that's what we're getting. So I'm going to use my brush this time because this is a large project, and it doesn't look like I'm doing circles, but I'm kind of doing a little bit of circular motion with this brush, wax brush, And then I'm taking this really thick nautical rope I get at Dollar Tree, and it was really hard to make a knot with this big thick rope. So get out my little needle nose pliers and let it be my fingers, since I don't have that great a grip in my old fingers anymore, and just pull and tug until I feel like it's tight. And here is the final product. So let me know which of these is your favorite. Do you love them both? They were super easy to make. Would you try to make some out of some scrap wood? Okay, these are just a few of the little mini cutting boards that I picked up on clearance. There are a variety of colors, shapes, sizes, and these are the few that I'm going to use today. Okay, and the DIY number one, this was an okay color to start with, but I wanted to use this Farm Fresh paint by DIY. Now I get my DIY paints from Sammy over at Unicorn Dust Designs. I will have her channel linked in the description box below if you want to go over there and check out all the beautiful colors of DIY paints there are to choose from. I gave this a couple of good coats, front, back, sides, the whole 9 yards. And now I'm going to seal it with some clear wax by DIY. Because it is a clay-based paint, when it gets wet, it will be reactivated. So if you don't seal it, then in the future, your piece is not going to last. So I'm just going to clear wax the front, the back, everything. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this white wax and just kind of do the edges and just give it a little bit of dimension. I absolutely love this Farm Fresh color. I'm in love with it. I ordered a lot of DIY colors and I'm in love with all of them. I think that the colors are so pretty, but this particular one I love. I'm not sure why I did this because I ended up covering up most of it, but I think it just softened the color a little bit and made it pretty. Now I'm going to take this little scrap of burlap and I frayed the edges a little bit. I'm going to run a bead of hot glue along the bottom and I'm making a little smooth edge, so I'm going to glue that down and then I'm going to fold it. I'm going to put the glue on the inside and then fold it up. You can see what I'm doing here. Using my little spatula from Dollar Tree so I don't burn my fingers, because the burlap is not a solid piece of fabric, so it will burn you because the glue will come all the way through. So I'm going to do that on both sides all the way up to the top and kind of leaving a little bit of a gap so we have a little pouch. We're going to put some little florals in there. These florals I bought at Hobby Lobby several years ago, and I don't even remember how much I paid for them, but I got them on half price, no doubt, because I don't buy anything full price, and I think they look so cute in there. And then I love my little crocheted lace ribbon because it's very shabby chic. I love to shabby chic things up. It happens to be my style. So I'm going to wrap that around right on top of this, and then I'm going to take that little twine that you see laying there and wrap it around the top of that piece of lace, just to give it a little bit of detail. Just putting a little hot glue down there, and this lace is a little bit, I started to say see-through, it's a little bit holy, so that the glue can seep through. So I'm using that little spatula from Dollar Tree. I got that a couple of Easters ago. I got a 2-pack of them, and I've just been using them and using them and using them, and so they've lasted me. So I thought I was going to wrap that around a couple times, but changed my mind. I liked it just one time. So I'm just going to wrap it around one time. Then I'm going to make a tiny little bow and stick it right in the center on the front, I think. If I remember correctly what I did, I think that's what I did. Yep, made just a little bow. Just a simple little bow. And put it right there. And then I made a little hanger for the hole. Just doubled it over, doubled my twine over, poked it through the hole, it through there. My little handy dandy tweezers, pull it through. Why didn't I take that? There we go. Take that greenery out of there. Get it out of my way. Okay. And then pull it through and then tie a knot on the end. And we have a little hanger if you want to hang it. It is really a cute shelf sitter. It's small enough it could go on a tiered tray. You can set it next to some antique books or buy some plants. I think it turned out really cute. Okay, the next one. This one I didn't do a whole lot to it, but it turned out super cute. I'm going to try my hand at the French stripe. And mine didn't turn out that great, but I do love how it turned out. I didn't change anything about the color on this. I just used it in its regular color, and I'm taping off the width of this tape. I'm just going to paint right down the center with white swan. Now this is just not really an off-white, but it's not a stark white. I absolutely love it. I used to mix this color, custom mix this color, and I would call it my boho white, because when I would do boho decor, I didn't want a stark white, but this was the perfect, what I would call a boho white. Excuse me. So I'm going to do a couple of little coats, just using my little makeup sponge, dabbing it on there, and then I end up getting an old stencil brush and using that too. And then I like having that stipple effect and having a little texture to it. So taking the tape off, that reveal and those nice crisp lines is always nice. Now this is where I don't know. I didn't know how wide to make the lines on the side, how far to put them, how far they needed to be out. I don't know. I don't know if there is a rhyme or reason to the French stripes. I don't know. But anyway, I was just eyeballing it and it turned out cute. So you'll have to let me know what you think. Or if you have an extra way that you do it. I did watch a YouTube video and there was someone who had, I can't remember the name of the channel, but they had tape that they had created for this very type of technique. But I did not have time to order that tape, so I just used my masking tape and went on about my business. And here's the final reveal, and I think it turned out just fine. And I gave it a good sanding with a fine grit. No, it was not a fine grit, it was a pretty medium grit. Well, I used the medium grit on the back because I wanted to kind of rough up this. It looked too pretty and shiny and new, so I decided to rough up the back side. This is what I would think would probably really be the front side, but I didn't want to paint those stripes on this side of it. So I just used my little sanding block. You can get them at Dollar Tree, but this one actually was gifted to me. And so then, yeah, I guess I did use this on the front. I just didn't press down as hard when I go over the painted part. And I did use a finer grit on this at some point, but I don't know if I got that on camera or not. So yeah, when I go to do this part, I think I just didn't press down as hard. I just barely rubbed over it. Oh, here we go. I knew it. So yeah, that's a finer grit. That's the 221. And then I'm going to wipe all the dust off with a little paper towel. Oh, I love how this one turned out. Here I go with the clear wax again. And I always put it on the back of my hand because we don't want to double dip, because all of the ingredients in this wax are natural ingredients, and we don't want to double dip in there because it will contaminate it. Now, this is some macrame cord, and I've had it in my stash for a very long time, and I took it it's a 3-ply, and so I unraveled it, and I'm going to use 1 ply of it, and I'm going to thread it through that hole and make a hanger, just like I do on all 5 of these. And I just wanted this to have more of a natural look, and this is all I did to this one. I did double knot that because I wanted the knot to be a little thicker on the end. And yeah, that's all I did to this one. I wanted it to kind of hang to the side, so I did it to the side, and then I just frayed the edge of that a little bit. And there you go. I love how this one turned out. Very simple. I am going to leave this beautiful gray color. I'm going to just scuff it up a little bit with this sanding block just to give it a little bit of character, because, you know, can't be too clean and neat, right? I'm going to take the white swan and I'm just going to give it a little dry brush, the front and the back and the sides. Oh, it's pretty heavy dry brush, but not too much. And these DIYs today were inspired for me by our Upcycled Life, Deidre, and she did some cutting boards, and she actually made the cutting boards and decorated them, and I'll leave her link in the description box below, as well as the video if I can find it, and you can go over and check her out. Now this is an IOD transfer. These IOD transfers are absolutely gorgeous. They are so easy to use. You just rub them down and they are so beautiful. They feel like they belong on your project. I get mine from Two Chicks Home and Market, and I will leave their link in the description box below. And if you are a first time customer, you can get a 10% discount with the link down there. So please go and check them out and use that link and get some beautiful goodies, some stamps, some molds, some transfers. Check out their website. She has some beautiful stuff on there. Now I'm going to use this great lace that I love again. I'm going to make this one look a little bit shabby chic. This is so my style, with a little bow up there. I'm going to put just a simple little twine hanger on it. I'm going for a little bit simple looks today, but I think that they all turn out great. This one I think is so beautiful. This may be my favorite one. Be sure and leave a comment down below which one of these little mini cutting boards is your favorite. Okay, DIY number 4, we are moving right along. This is Cake Batter by DIY, and it is a beautiful color. And yeah, I just used the paint off the lid because the lid came off when I opened it up. You're also not supposed to double dip your brush into these paints, so I usually use what's on the lid, but sometimes I do dip into the paint. Sorry. So I give this 2 coats of paint, front, sides, and back. And I did not get on camera. Ooh, I dipped in the jar. Sorry, guys. I did not get on camera that I used some wax. I learned this from Deidre too. I used some wax and I just rubbed it in a few places where I didn't want the paint to stick. And this is a great way to distress. And then I gave it a coat of white swan paint on top. After the white swan paint is completely dry, I go in with, I'm trying to find whatever works the best. I had this little plastic spatula that didn't work real good, and so then I had this little wooden stick that worked much better. And so I'm just scraping off the paint where I had applied that wax. I really wish I would have gotten that on camera, but it gives a great distressed look. You can see over there on the left, it's a great distressed look. Now, I had this little resin piece. It's a little, keyhole, and I just stippled some cake batter paint on it. And now I'm trying to decide which size of these little keys that I want to use. Those keys I got on Amazon, and they will be linked in my description box below. Now I'm using the Antique Wax by DIY, and I'm just going to stipple it on here and then wipe off the excess, and then I stipple a little more on and wipe off the excess. The DIY waxes are amazing products. If you haven't tried them yet, hop on over to Sammy's website and pick you up some, because they are amazing products. They seal your product. They give it an awesome, unique look. I love the way it made this turn out. It looks very antique and used and worn, and I don't know, I love the way it looks, especially on this little distressed looking wood piece. That was my first time to ever use that wax distressing technique. I've been wanting to use it. I've seen several people do it. Okay, so I braided some of this yarn together to make a thicker piece because I wanted to use this green yarn as my little handle, but it wasn't thick enough, so I braided 3 pieces of it together. I think that turned out really cute for a little handle here, and then I just stuck it through there and tied a knot on the end. Super simple. Now I'm going to make a tiny little tassel. I just cut a little piece of cardboard, and if you want to know how to make a tassel, I have a video. I'll link it in the description box below. Slowed down, real-time version of how to make a tassel and a finger bow. So I'll leave that in the description box below. That tassel was a little wadded up too, and I did spray it with some water and smoothed it out, but I didn't show that on camera. Now I'm going to thread that yarn through that key, and then I'm going to tie it to our handle. So it will dangle down there, and then I do believe I hot glued that down. I don't know if I got that on camera or not. Sometimes I think I hit record and I don't, or I hit record and then I forgot I hit it, and then I hit it again thinking I'm hitting record and I hit stop. The struggle is real, guys. So I've got these tiny little pieces of greenery off of a little greenery bush, and I'm just going to add a few little pieces to the top as an extra little added detail, and that is it. So let me know what you think about this one. I absolutely love how this turned out. That little cup on top of those books was my daddy's when he was little, and he would be 82 years old. So, okay, last but not least, I'm going to use Saltwash, of course. One of my videos would not be complete without using some Saltwash. And then this Cowgirl Coral. Oh, I cannot even say the name of this paint. It is such a beautiful color. It's Cowgirl Coral. So I'm going to mix a little bit of that with a little bit of Saltwash, and we're going to make a beautiful finish here. So I'm going to mix that together really good. And then I'm just going to take that old worn out chippy brush over there and stipple it on to the front and the sides. I don't usually use the texture on the back side of my projects. I usually just paint it solid, that color that I'm using. So now I'm just going to use a good amount. I'm going to stipple it on all over it, and then I wasn't able to really get it down in that little groove very good with this brush, so I got a smaller little chippy brush. It's an old brush I've had for years, and it's just kind of an old worn out stiff brush, and so it worked really good to get down in that little groove. And yeah, so there you go. Then I went back in, gave it a little bit more texture, and I didn't really want a lot of really thick texture on there, so I just got how much I wanted on there. So now I'm going to take White Swan with no Saltwash and give this, okay, so on the top coat of this, I want it thick in some places and not so thick in other places. So I'm giving it a good coat, but not solid all over. In some places it's solid, in some places it's not. So when I sand, you get chippy And then you can see the coral still through there. So that's kind of what. And then the back just looks sort of dry brushed, heavy dry brushed, but it's not. Okay. Then here we go. I didn't get on camera when I sanded, and I wish I could have because it was such a magical thing. But I just used that sanding block and sanded it down. And oh, look at all that. Like my friend Sammy says, that chippy goodness. I love how this turned out. You can see the white, you can see the coral. You can go all the way down to the wood a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to use my IOD stamp. This comes from the, let's see, I had someone teach me how to say this in French. Let me see if I can remember. La Campagne. La Campagne. Okay, Audrey, did I say it right? I'm saying it like a dork though. Oh boy. Okay, so yes, it's from that series. You can get this from twochickshomeandmarket.com. Link in the description box. First time buyers, first time customers get a 10% off with that link. So be sure you go down there and use that coupon. And I want you to see the detail. I zoomed in so you can see that beautiful detail on this little rooster. And look how pretty that black is up against that coral. Now, I'm just taking a fresh baby wipe and cleaning it off. And then I did go to the sink and rinse it good with water. And if you take good care of your IOD products, they will take care of you. And I store that ink pad upside down. That was a trick that Elsie over there at Two Chicks Home and Market taught me. She has the cutest store in Denison, Texas. If you're ever in Denison, Texas, please go downtown. The old downtown. It's so quaint, and her little shop is so adorable. It used to be the hardware store, and she told me that when she was little, she would go in there with her dad, and there were all these colors of paints and all these little hardware pieces and trinkets and things. And now she has all kinds of paints and trinkets and things in her store. And I just love that. Okay, so there it is with a bigger bow. I decided I didn't like the bigger bow, so I made a little smaller bow, and I like it better. If you like a bigger bow, make a bigger bow. And then I'm just going to make a handle, and this one will be done. So be sure to leave me a comment and let me know you're here. I don't know you're here if you don't leave me a comment. And let me know which one of these was your favorite. Be sure if you're not subscribed to hit that subscribe and the bell so you get notified every time that I upload a new video.
Thank you if you watched this video all the way to the end. You made it. That was a lot of creating. I hope that you enjoyed it. Be sure and give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. I like to know that you were here. I like to communicate with you. I like to say hello. But most of all, I want you to remember to be still and know that He is God.